Hi everyone, it's me, Manvik from the Robotics Academy, and today we're going to be going over an intro to research. And the age range for this doesn't really matter, and you could be a high schooler, you could be in college, or even post college when you're starting this. But it's really for anyone, and research is, in general, a great experience and a great learning opportunity that I highly recommend everyone to take. So, first off, what is research? To put it simply, research is a process of discovering something new. So maybe like discovering a new cancer treatment or inventing a new product, that all takes research because it has that level of innovation and critical thinking and background knowledge that you all combine to make a new development. And though research can seem very complicated, and I bet a lot of you do think steps that are very simple to the scientific method. So the first one is background. You want to know what you're doing research in, so that's general subject area, but also the topic you've chosen or the area you want to make an impact in. You want to find more information about that, which is the background aspect of it. So you can look at the previous works and the more generalized previous works and kind of understand what area it is that you're doing research in and what's been done in that area and everything like that. Then you want to find something new that you want to innovate. So that's the problem statement. This is kind of like coming up with the question you want to solve. And this is just any problem that you think this problem exists and I want to solve it. Then from that problem that you come up with, you're going to do a literature review. This is reading previous research in the area. So this could be like papers, articles, or anything that really talks about stuff that's in that specific area. So, for example, if you do want to do developing a new cancer treatment, then you could look at previous cancer treatments and see what do I want to improve on? How does my net method new? How do I innovate, right? Because you can't just be making the same cancer treatment over and over again. If everyone just did the same thing as everyone else, then we wouldn't have any innovations. You want to see how can I make this better or what new things can I add to it? You then want to come up with a procedure. This is kind of what is that new thing. So, am I going to be using this drug instead of this drug to solve this? Or do I want to use this technology to solve this problem rather than this? And the reason you're doing that is because you want to have a good plan for how you're going to solve that problem. And that way, when you actually get into it, you have a procedure you can compare between old ones and say, this is my innovation and this is why it's better. So, first, you also got to remember if it's not really better, then it's still an innovation because it's new information you've learned about that field. And you have to have that comparison to make sure you actually have some baseline that you want to compare or learn from. So if I just say my method did this good, then I don't really know how good the previous method was and how innovative this was. So you want to always compare it to previous methods and generally the best method that already exists. And if no methods already exist, then you can maybe look for something kind of similar. And if nothing exists, then that's kind of where you don't really need that much comparison. But you do want to include some base comparison in your own thing. Like maybe you have no treatment versus treatment. You always want comparison. And to design those, like to get those comparisons, that's where you get the experiments from. Or that's so to put those comparisons in, you need to design a good experiment and outline what that comparison is in your procedure. And what you're going to be doing is taking your procedure and converting it into stuff that you actually do, and that's going to be the experiments. The experiments, you always want to make sure that everything is controlled variables and all that good data and good experiment information, and then make sure you're always collecting a response. So, for example, if I want to see if plants do better in sunlight or not sunlight, then I want to make sure I'm using the same plant in like the very similar or the same location and with very similar conditions. That way I can ensure that the sunlight, the only thing I would change between those two situations, is the thing that's really affecting the plant's growth. And like I said, plant's growth, that's the thing you're measuring. That's the thing that you're getting data from and making a discernible comparison between. And the comparison is no sunlight versus sunlight. And you always want that data because numbers are what we can use to really show this information. And it's not always numbers, maybe it's more people like things people said or people's reactions, but in general, you want data that you can build off of and show as evidence. Because if I just say my method is better, but I don't prove it, then no one's really going to believe me. Especially if it's something in like the medical domain where you really got to know that your treatment works. Like you don't want a treatment someone just magically came up with and said, I think that this treatment will work, but I don't have any evidence to show for it. You wouldn't want to take that treatment because you can't trust it's actually going to help you, and your health is on the line in that case. So make sure you have data, and it's not just for medicine, it's for any field because you want to make sure your contribution is meaningful and correct. And that's where the results come in. You take that data and you analyze it. What does this data mean and what conclusions can we draw from it? That's kind of connecting to the next phase as well, but comparing the data between your comparison as well is another thing. So did I do better than the previous one? How much better than I do? And is it really a significant benefit? Um, and you could also think of things like efficiency, cost, and things like that. So my method is a little worse than the previous method, but it's much more cost effective, is another argument you can propose. And that's something you'd also put in the conclusions, wrapping up the entire process. So what problem did you solve? How did you solve it? And what experiment like did you do? And what results came of that? And why is your solution innovative? And even if it's not innovative, like what did you learn from that process? So maybe plants, certain plants don't actually do better in sunlight because they're made for dark situations. So you can say sunlight didn't actually help that plant, but I learned now I know that this plant doesn't get helped by sunlight, which is still useful because a future researcher might use that and make a really cool innovation, and you'd get credit for it, like in partial you'd get credit for it. They'd cite your research because you helped them on that journey. And all information that you learn, whether it be good and like positive innovation or maybe it didn't work out, is still helpful in the long run. So there's three main types of research you want to decide between. The first one is a case study. And this might be more what you're familiar with, like in school or in general when you're trying to learn something. You're taking a bunch of sources and you're crunching them together. And it's basically to learn more about current works in the area. So say I wanted to learn more about the War of 1812, then I would look at all these docs and all these texts for about the War of 1812, combine their information and kind of uh, make like a good understanding of it. And the way that case studies kind of make their own like contribution is by making a discussion of it. So you're going to say maybe the War of 1812 was bad, maybe it was good, or it was beneficial for this but negative for this, or some sort of argument that you want to pose or some sort of discussion that you make that really puts in your own contribution, your own thoughts into the process. And these can be really useful if someone else wants to come back and say, I want to learn more about the War of 1812, then they could find that and build off of it or just learn from that. Or if someone else wants to do one of the other types of research, this is a really good stepping stone for them to learn more about the area they want to do research in. So an example would be a discussion of cars in the market right now and your thoughts on which one is the best. So I could compare Model A and Model B and Model C and Model D. And I could say, I think Model B is the best because this, but I also think Model A did pretty good. And that's like one way of thinking of a case study. Another type of research is applied research, which is applying something that's already being done to solve a new specific problem. And it's mainly meant for practical use, so taking some more theory and putting that down into the real world so that someone can actually use it. For example, someone may have found out that this piece of DNA is really related to some sort of cancer. Then what you can do is design a drug targeting that DNA and kind of make a treatment for it. And in this case, it was in the same area. It was kind of still in medicine. But you can also do it with, say someone made a new algorithm for finding the best thing in some category based on some information you have about it. So you could take that algorithm and move it over into, say, a library. Based on someone's preferences, what is the best library book for them that they should check out? So in this case, you went from like a more algorithmic or computer science type of domain to libraries. And and applied research really connects two different areas together and makes research more interconnected and allows for these applications to carry over and make a more tangible difference. And that's really where these like innovations that really help us in our own lives do come from. An example would be turning a normal car into a special type of race car. So you could be like your daily driver, just a car you'd go on for like maybe you're going to school in that car or you're going to go pick up groceries in that one. You're taking what's already been done and already been created and moving it into another area, which is racing. So you're going to have to make your own innovations on it. Like, what do I know about racing and like your prior knowledge about it that this car needs to include to actually make it useful? Um, but still, you're not really creating a new product, you're just making a new use for that product, which is still super helpful. And the third type of research is exploratory. So this one is just building off of previous works or starting from scratch, really, to develop something new entirely. And this is for more generalized applications. So this is what you're taking and then making an application for it in applied research. And if you really want, you could do exploratory research and then do applied research as well. So taking your new thing and thinking of an application for it and doing that as well. And just to give an example, since this might seem a little confusing, it could be building a new type of car entirely, like one that can fly. So currently, we don't really have any flying cars. Uh, and so what this would be doing is basically making a flying car, maybe with new features like this one can flap its wings when it flies, and that's better in some way. But this could be used in many different areas. This could be used in like flying car racing or flying car taxi delivery. You don't really have a specific use case in mind. You're just making this because you think it could be helpful for someone else to apply in the long run, or maybe even for you to apply when you do want to do an application. So, why do you want to do research? One of the biggest things with research is that you get to have hands on experience in a field you're interested in. So, if you're interested in biology, you can do research in the field of biology and really learn what more about biology and what you might like about it. And maybe you don't learn that you don't really like biology as more. You can kind of move to a different field, but you really get to feel for what uh, that area is like and understand if you want to pursue it in the future or what exactly you want to pursue in there. So you could see like medicine versus zoology and see, oh, I think I like zoology more because the research I did is more tailored to my it's more tailored to zoology, and that's something I like more. And something else you can do is develop critical thinking and problem solving skills. So no matter what research you do, so if we go back to this slide, all of these types of research, they all have critical thinking. You're always like putting in some of your own input. So for case studies, you're always making that discussion of results and kind of putting your own opinion on there. For applied research, you're always thinking, how can I turn this into something into another area? Like how can I move that algorithm? What do I have to adapt about it so that it will work really well for libraries? And for exploratory research, you're really just thinking of a new solution or a brand new solution, really delving into the unknown for something that really it does not exist yet, and that really requires critical thinking and problem solving skills. So through research, you build those skills a lot, and those can come useful in literally any area because these are needed everywhere. And of course, you learn new things from research. Research is how everyone learns. You're learning information, you're learning this works, that doesn't work, and more about the field in general when you're doing that background learning for the area. So, in general, you're learning a lot of new things, and you're also helping other people learn new things because your research can really help someone know, oh, maybe this method worked really well, this method didn't really work well, and how they want to expand upon it. And lastly, it's really fun. It's amazing to see when your contribution is being used by others or when something you did finally worked and finally clicked and now you made something really innovative that you were really interested in and something you're really passionate about is finally working. So in general, research is a fun experience. And how to start. So the first thing you have to do to start researching is finding an area of study. So this can be pretty general, like you could say biology, computer science, um, like finance, or you could go more specific. Maybe you want to do medicine specifically. Maybe you want to do the stock market specifically. Um, and then what you do is within there, you think of a specific topic. So in medicine, you could do like cancer research. You could do autoimmune diseases, or you can do sports medicine, any of these areas. And then in that area, you're going to identify something that you want to solve. What's that one problem you think you can make a solution to, or something you want to make a solution to? So, for example, cancer, a cure for cancer. That's one really big thing. And that's one topic you could focus on. Maybe it's for a specific type of cancer. Maybe it's general cancer, but you want to identify a specific problem that you want to solve. And connecting this to what I said before, we have the problem statement. This is where you're really identifying that problem statement and finding out what your contribution is going to be. And then what you're going to do is look for previous works in the area, very similar to the background literature review and just learning more background in the area. So what that could be is I found out these works for a cure for cancer, or learning more about the specific type of cancer you're working with. For the car engine things, these are the previous cars, and this is how my engine is going to develop off of that. These are other methods about engines, and I'm going to kind of understand more about these. So you're really building that background knowledge so you really know what you're doing. And lastly, you're going to design a solution. You're designing your innovation. So you're going to say, previous works did this, and I want to do this. I might take some attributes of previous works and like piece them together. Or I might just think of something completely new, right? Maybe this engine had this feature, this engine had this feature, and I think that if we combine them, it can do really well. And that's when you really have more of a plan and you know what you want to do with research, and that's when you can start doing the other steps. You can kind of put that more onto paper, or start building that engine that you really want. And after that, you can take all those experiments and results and compress them and all that knowledge you learned into a research paper or a presentation that you give following this like background, what you have to know about this area before I start talking, what am I solving, previous works in the area, what my procedure is, how I did it, and then results and your conclusions about the area. And that's like in the research paper or presentation that you give. But that all requires figuring out what you want to do and kind of how you want to do it. And you can all obviously change this on the fly. Say you realize it's not really working out, but I think, ooh, if I swap this out, I think it could really work well. You can always do that, and this is just making sure you have an idea. And this is for doing research on your own. But if you want to say do it with someone else, like a professor or a researcher in the field, then you can reach out to them. Or for high school students, and I think college students as well, there's also a lot of online resources and a lot of camps that you can do that really put you in this research position. And it's another way you can get mentoring. You can learn more about research from there. And it's another great way to do research. So thank you so much for listening to this presentation, and good luck on your future research. And remember, if you want to learn more or want more resources like this, so maybe if you're going to do that background research and you're going to learn more about the area, then be sure to check out the roboticsacademy.org, because we have tons and tons of free STEM resources that you guys can utilize.